All right, folks, one of the fun things about running an auction company, running an auction house here is that from week to week, you never know what you're going to get in. Different consigners will bring us different things all the time, and this time we get some fun stuff right here. These are some bootlegs from the early 2000s, late 90s. I love bootlegs. I'm a big fan of what other companies come up with. If you know me, if you know what I collect, I love the 4-star Transformer bootlegs of the early 80s. I wouldn't even know if you'd call those fully bootlegs or not. They're just different variations. But so this is kind of fun. I don't know if it's as creative as some of the 4-star stuff, but I know it's become very popular. People are really looking for these now. They've become highly collectible, surprisingly. And I'm going to show them to you. First, we'll show you the size marker. You can see a slight variation on this Darth Vader as opposed to the regular. You can see this just absolutely awful sword that he's got, the lightsaber. And this, you can see the sculpt on these. To the best of my knowledge, I don't think there's any articulation at the elbows or the knees. These were done on Star Wars Power of the Force card, specifically the Farmboy Luke. All of them from that line were all put on Farmboy Lukes. Whether somebody noticed or not, whether they thought that's what it was supposed to be, or whether they just cheaped out, I don't know. But these would have been made for the 5 and dime type stores and the knockoff markets. These would have been found in grocery stores for real cheap, and just pushing off that episode 1 popularity. There's a way to make a quick buck off of those. We cannot find the manufacturer on these. The best that we can find is that these were imported through Cashmark into the UK. A lot of these, unlike the Uzes or some of those that became very well known, this became very popular in the early 2000s just because they were kind of a chase. It was hard to find some of these guys, some of these figures. But you can see it used artwork from the Shadows of the Empire line is what some of this is. Some of these bigger, I was never a fan of these sculpts in the first place, but they reused those sculpts on not a very popular line. So it took a whole bunch of things that weren't selling well already, weren't really popular, or weren't really all that high quality, and combined them all together in this kind of mishmash. When they did that, something golden gets born, something interesting because it's unique and hard to find. So if you're looking to complete your knockoff collection, originally these went into markets in China, in the UK, and some in South America, near as we can track. But these ones were probably for the UK market, came through various ways to our consigner's collection, and now he's making them available to you. So here you go. As you can see, it is a version of Darth Vader. We believe that these were probably done by the factory running out, grabbing a copy of Hasbro's Vader. Technically Kenner, I think these were still released as Kenner at that time, but Hasbro would have owned them, and just remolding them. When you do that, you get a little bit of shrink in the molds as the plastic shrinks, and that's probably why he's missing his joints, and probably why he is a little bit smaller, as we showed before. So now you know about as much as we know. Let's show you the condition. So the card is surprisingly good. A lot of times these end up on just really flimsy cards. The bubble feels like it's a slightly less quality plastic. It's a thinner. They blow mold, not blow mold these. They vacuum mold these to the card. And it is starting to see some yellowing, as you can see right there. So a little bit of yellowing, a little bit of crush wear right here, but surprisingly, it hasn't cracked through or fallen off the card yet. And then finally, we'll show you the back again. You can see the way the light plays off of it. No real major creases or anything like that. Just a few bends here and there, your typical shelf wear. So for a 30-year-old piece, no, 20 years, I'd say 20-year-old piece, pretty interesting find right here. If you collect these kind of knockoffs and bootlegs, head on over to TheBigToyAuction.com. You're going to be really happy with this one. Next up on the block, we have for you another interesting find. This is from the early 2000s. This is an R2-D2. This is a knockoff that He appears slightly larger. He appears in terrible condition, and we'll go over that in a moment. These were made for the European markets, a little bit in the Chinese markets, and this in particular one, this was imported through by a company called Cashmark. These came into the UK markets and probably would have been available at their grocery stores. One of those things, last-minute buy for the kids who's going off the popularity of the new movie at that time. You can see that right here, the Cashmark import. So it was a quick way for some of these Chinese factories to make a dollar. You can see the artwork. These are the, rather than the Power of the Force figures, that use these molds right here for a lot of them. And probably what was done, near as we can figure, based on all the research we found, they probably took existing pieces, quick ran them to the factory, made some molds out of existing pieces. When you do that, you get shrinkage, or you get sometimes they blow up, and sometimes they lose a lot of the detail. So let's look at him. He is in just awful shape. It was an attempt at some of that vac metal silver and blue up top that just fails. You got really terrible quality control on these. It's almost like somebody took a sandblaster to the mold, and that's pretty common with these sort of things. But it has that novelty to it, so it's pretty interesting. I'll show you the condition of the card. Obviously, it's a Farmboy Luke card, not an R2-D2 card. That was common with these. They would take one or two of these. There was a Jedi version of this. There was the Farmboy Luke. And then finally, you can see that the bubble is surprisingly clear, given that it's of a lesser quality, a little bit thinner. It doesn't go onto the card quite as well, and you'll see it's half mis-centered, but it's not peeling up, which is kind of surprising. And the card itself all around is good. So if you like these kind of bootlegs, and I know there's tons of you collectors out there that really love these, I get it, I understand it. If you like these bootlegs, then you'll head on over to TheBigToyAuction.com. There's a lot of these pieces available, and of them, I'd say this is probably one of your better specimens. It's held up pretty well over 20 years. Get a hold of yours now at TheBigToyAuction.com. More bootlegs right here. You got from Star Wars, the Power of the Force is what we're going to call it. The Power of the Force 2 red carded, even though it's on a Farmboy Luke card, and it does have this later version of Chewbacca. These are from the early 2000s. And as near as we can tell, these came from a company called Cashmark. It does say made in China, but then so does the original product. It comes from a company called Cashmark, who would import these into the UK. We have reason to believe that they were probably also in the China market, the European market, and a little bit of South America, Italy, Turkey, they went into. But no information as to who they were or what else they made. They made some Shadow of the Empire items as well, but other than that, it's hard to tell, which is pretty common with the bootleg market. But you bootleg guys out there, you know, these became very desirable, very collectible. A little bit slightly different size. Look at that rifle. Look at the quality control on that rifle. That blaster rifle, I certainly would not want to shoot that. But you know, the paint apps on these were surprisingly good. That's what struck me as odd on a lot of these. The paint apps, maybe not good in terms of accuracy, but in terms of highly detailed. It's kind of surprising. So I'll take you through the condition. That's what this is. It's a condition report. We'll show you that these got some dirt, some schmutz on there, and he's starting to peel up right here. Probably that happened on day one. I suspect it was just a poor quality control. When you shrink wrap these and put them hot on the thing, it looks like it shriveled up a little bit, which is a shame. But if you really like what bootlegs are and what they attempt to be, there's something about that kind of gives it a little bit of provenance, so to speak. Gives it a little bit of, you know, that's really what a bootleg is when it's just poorly, shoddily made like that. So For me, for my taste, I actually prefer that. I like that, but maybe you don't. We'll throw it over on the back, and you can see more of the curling on the card. A little bit thicker of a card than you might expect from a bootleg. Almost. This is very similar to the stock that they would have been used in the actual production. So who knows? This is possible that this came out of a factory that Hasbro was using. It's very possible, and that a few years later they just quick crank these out, see if they could make a few more bucks. Either way, it's a pretty cool piece. If you like your bootlegs, if you like Star Wars, if you like something that everybody else doesn't have in their collection, well, then this is it. Head on over to TheBigToyAuction.com. You can see this and all the other items in our upcoming auction. You can leave your pre-bids right now, or you can join us live at the auction. Either way, we look forward to seeing you at the auction. Check this out, folks. This is a bootleg of Boba Bootleg. Boba Bootleg right here. This is a little bit smaller, a little bit different proportions, kind of wonky, and I like that. I like that he is just terrible. That's how I like my bootlegs, if and when I collect those sort of things. I like them. The more terrible, the better. Like the Fun Schools. Like the Fun Schools from G.I. Joe, although those are not bootlegs per se, those are licensed. So the interesting things here is he's a slightly different size, which lends us to believe that he was probably taken from an original item, bought at retail, quickly molded. They make molds for him. That's why he doesn't have the articulation at the elbows and knees, as near as we can tell. It's much, much easier to just mold those straight as one piece. It's a slightly different size because of shrinkage and warpage that comes out of the mold. And then the paint apps are kind of poorly done on this. We praise some of the other ones in this line as being fairly well detailed. This one I would say not so much. These are poor. But that's what that's part of the beauty, part of the magic of a bootleg. So let's check it out. The card itself, the bubble is actually pretty tight on there, and you can see there's no yellowing to that bubble, surprisingly. I'll show you the back while we're here. Looks like, yeah, it looks like it caught on something on a shelf somewhere, unfortunately. And yep, that comes through to the other side right there. But the rest, other than the warping of that card, and you expect that. Yeah, heck, you expect that of older vintage stuff for the card to start to warp after the amount of time. On bootlegs in particular, you expect almost immediately, because they're usually made with thinner stock. But this, I would say, is very close. Yeah, I'd say pretty close to the original stock. It's very possible, for all the research we were able to do, it was hard to find any kind of information about the manufacturer. We checked all the different boards, all the people. We talked to a couple of collectors of this sort of thing, and there's just not a lot of information out there other than this cash mark sticker. Which leads us to believe that it was released in the UK market, but some of these were also in the Chinese market, European, South American, etc. So lots of different places. Probably came out of the same factory as a bootleg that was common at that time of the Shadows of the Empire, and these became very desirable, very collectible. I think that market has kind of died down a little bit, but for the last of you out there still struggling to complete that bootleg, you got to head on over and get this. This is a good opportunity to get these while you still can. This is the Star Wars Power of the Force Farmboy Luke carded version of the Boba Fett bootleg. Boba Bootleg from TheBigToyAuction.com. Leave your pre-bids right now or join us live on auction day. Either way, we look forward to seeing you at the auction.